was cold, my legs were terribly painful, and I was starving. They threw me and 30 other women out of the truck like sacks of potatoes. Although spring had already started, I could feel the frost. I was only wearing a dress and a light jacket. "Line up in a row," were the first words I heard from the guard when I arrived at the camp, and I knew then that I was in hell. First, they made us strip naked, examined us like cattle for a long time, and we had to stand barefoot on the icy ground. It warms my heart to hope that one day, sweetheart, we will meet. You, me, and little Anita will be together forever. These are words from the memories left in secret letters from Olga Prestes, a communist activist who was imprisoned in the Ravensbrück camp in the spring of 1939.
Olga Prestes was born in Munich on February 12, 1908, into the family of a wealthy German lawyer. At the age of 15, she was already in a leading position in the German Communist Youth Union. She developed a strong character, idealistic tendencies, and determination early on that would play an important role in her future. Her first imprisonment was in 1928, where she was imprisoned with the German revolutionary Otto Braun. After escaping from prison, she left her homeland. She later met the Brazilian Luiz Carlos Prestes, her future husband, and together they traveled to Brazil in 1934, where they participated in the failed state protests, which led to the imprisonment of her husband and Olga's deportation to Germany, where the German Gestapo was already waiting for her. There she was taken to the Berlin women's prison in Barnumstrasse, where her daughter Anita was born on November 27. At the age of 14 months, the baby girl was miraculously saved by her paternal grandmother. She was soon transferred to the concentration camp at Lichtenberg in February 1938, where she was put in solitary confinement for a year. In the spring of 1939 began the terrible and heroic phase of her life in the Ravensbrück camp. There she was appointed Blockeltest, in charge of a disobedient group of women, whom she organized and taught the necessity of personal hygiene, which ultimately saved the lives of many female prisoners. During the Holocaust, Jewish women were sent to 7 different concentration camps throughout Europe. One camp, Ravensbrück in Germany, was unique in that only female prisoners were held there. Babies born there were simply left to starve to death, as there was no way to house and feed them. Despite her own suffering, Olga did many things that lifted the spirits of the women and helped improve their situation. She even made a small secret atlas to teach other prisoners about geography and war, and this amazingly detailed atlas is preserved today in the Ravensbrück archives. While working as a slave to make missile parts for V-2 rockets at Siemens Electric Company in Ravensbrück, she cooperated with an underground newspaper and helped organize extra bread and margarine for women in the infirmary who were seriously ill or dying. Thanks to her cunning and steadfastness, Olga was able to bribe the camp guards to select the victims of the experiments and thus saved 17 people. In the experiments, female prisoners had their leg muscles cut open in glass, wood, and dirt inserted into wounds, which were either untreated or treated with various kinds of medication. Bones were broken and shattered. The experiments were repeated many times. Many test subjects died of infection or were left disabled, which in the conditions of camp life meant a long and painful death. Olga's heroic deeds were not ignored by the camp authorities. For one minor transgression, she was punished with 25 lashes and placed in a solitary confinement cell in a maximum security bunker, without a bunk, where she had to sleep on the floor and not eat for weeks, defecating directly on the floor. One of the inmates of Ravensbrück camp recounted after her release that Olga had saved her from sexual abuse by an SS officer. She begged for her release, but an SS soldier grabbed Olga instead of the prisoner and dragged her into an empty barracks building. What he did with her there is not known. When a woman later asked Olga what happened to her, she smiled lightly and said, "It is not important. We have to live to see the end of this nightmare." At the age of 34, Olga was one of the Jewish political prisoners who had been gassed in a psychiatric hospital in Bernburg in the early spring of 1942. Her murder was part of an extermination organized by the Nazis under the codename 1413. In this way, approximately 1,500 female prisoners were exterminated. Many years later, a secretly written letter was found in the surviving archives of Ravensbrück. It was addressed to Olga's husband, Louis. It contained the following words.
"Oh, my dear, someday the day will come when no roll call will hold us back. The gates of Ravensbrück, Sachsenhausen, Dachau, and Buchenwald will open wide, and the great free world will embrace us. And then we, the prisoners of the concentration camps, will walk the wide streets. And whoever looks at us will see the deep wrinkles of suffering on our faces, will see the marks of our mental and bodily anguish that will remain with us forever. But until that day comes, we must continue to fight, to forgive, and to love. Love those who want to destroy us. I look forward to the day when I can hold you in my arms. The day will soon come.
By the end of the war and the camp's liberation in 1945, about 130,000 women and about 1,000 children between the ages of 2 and 16 were incarcerated at Ravensbruck. Between 30,000 and 50,000 people had been killed there. Still, it is amazing that thousands of people who ended up in Ravensbrück survived. This was largely thanks to women like Olga Prestes, who were willing to have their backs to their fellow inmates, to support them, and in the end paid for it with their lives. What would you like to see on our channel next? Tell us in the comments.